name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Stonesy Reads, a video I used to make with the idea of reading for content. Of course, it's been so long that I, haven't really gone around to it. It was just another thing for me to do, and I really didn't want to do it. So, instead, I kind of just did my own thing. But now, I'm here doing this. So, yeah, it's also productive for me. We are reading Lallys Game. Last time we read this, we barely got, 10 pages in. I don't remember what's exactly happening, but it's barely 10 pages in. We will be reading this entire book. Today we'll be reading from page 81 to page 100. In total there is 232 pages, so expect some more episodes of this book. Alright. Now, let's get started, shall we? Cade pulled the SUV beside the moving van. He turned off the engine and swiveled to look at Selena. Ready for this? He asked her. What, moving into our house or getting married? Both. I can't wait. Selena grabbed his hand and kissed his fingers. Cade had the best hands, large, square, with the faintest traces of black hair on the backs. She entwined her long, thin fingers with his thick, large-knuckled ones. She held up her hands. Let's do this. Letting go of Cade, Selena grinned and threw open the passenger door. She got out of the SUV and inhaled the sweet smell of apple trees, tiny white blossoms. Wow, Selena threw out her arms and spun in a circle. I'm going to get to see these blossoms every spring. Cade got out of the SUV and chuckled at Selena's enthusiasm. He waved at the two muscular guys who were opening up the back of the van. The movers, Ed and Bailey, had picked up Cade's things first. Then they'd come to the apartment. Selena had shared her roommate, Val, and they added her belongings to the van. I thought we'd spend the afternoon here overseeing the move, and then I'll take you to my mom's house, Cade said. Sounds good. Selena would be staying with Cade's mom until the wedding. Cade came around the front of the SUV and he gave Selena a quick kiss. You want to unlock the house? I'll go talk to the movers. Cade headed toward the two big men. Selena grinned and started toward the porch that ran along the front of the house. She loved that porch. She couldn't wait to buy a porch swing. Selena stood in front of the stone fireplace of the large living room, just beyond the farmhouse's small slate-floored entryway. She held a clipboard, and she checked off the burro that Ed, the larger of the two muscle-bound movers, was carrying. That goes in the second bedroom to the right on the top of the stairs, she told him. Got it, he said. He headed toward the stairs. A couple seconds later, Bailey stepped into the house with a big brown steamer trunk propped on the shoulder. Selena scouted the dirty and scarred old trunk, with the aged leather straps and tarnished and dented brass clasps locked the engine. She wrinkled her nose at the trunk's musky odor, which she could smell even several feet away. What's that doing here? She asked. Don't ask me, Bailey said. I just work here. He shifted the trunk. Selena sighed and pointed at the floor. Bailey set down the trunk a few feet from Selena and trudged back out of the house. Selena walked up to the trunk and glared at it. Frowning, she tucked her clipboard under her arm and bent over to lift the trunk. Bailey had carried it as if it wasn't that heavy. Cade popped through the door moments after Bailey was out of sight. They're almost finished with... Cade stopped and he saw Selena in front of the trunk. His face flushed and jaw tightened. What are you doing? He snapped. Selena cringed at the edge of his voice. His tone was sharp, and it was wrapped in what almost sounded like a snarl. Cade had never lashed out at her like that before. He never looked this upset before either. He wasn't sure how to respond. Selena decided she'd start with her best dirty look. She'd perfected the expression since childhood. She used it regularly on her big brother. She'd only had to pull out a couple of times before on Cade, though. Once when he'd failed to praise the chocolate chip cookies that she'd baked him on the anniversary of their first date, and again when he'd make a snarky comment about how many shoes she had. Since then, he hadn't given her cause to glower at him, until now. What do you mean, what am I doing? Selena flung back at him. What are you doing? I thought we agreed to bring only our best stuff. We can afford to buy new things. We don't need old secondhand junk lying around. Kate, hurry over. He took Selena's elbow and started steering her away from the trunk, although she didn't want to walk away from the trunk because she wanted to open it and see what was so important that Kate would get all uptight about it. She had let him lead her to the other side of the room. Kate's face smoothed back to its normal placid lines. He took a breath. Sorry, I didn't mean to be short with you. He gave her the trademark lopsided grin. What we agreed to bring our best stuff and our memorabilia. I'm pretty sure a lot of our boxes are filled with photos and keepsakes from your childhood. Selena shrugged. Yeah, but this, she gestured at the trunk. When I asked you about it the first night I went to your place, you said it was just an old trunk. You didn't say it was full of memorabilia, so I figured since it was so ratty, you'd leave it behind. What even in it? Cade put his arm around Selena's shoulders. He shrugged. Oh, just some old stuff from my childhood. Keepsakes. Like we agreed to. Selena made a face. Can't you store your keepsakes in something more, I don't know, modern? I thought you liked antiques, miss. I have to have a vintage dress. Selena smiled. He had a point. Okay, so not modern. But what about just prettier? Less creepy. That thing looks like it belongs in a haunted house or something. Kate's arms tightened around Selena for an instant. It relaxed as fast as it squeezed, so she might have imagined a brief sensation of tension in Cade's muscles. I promise I won't insist we use the trunk as a coffee table, Cade said. He looked down at Selena and gave her another of his irresistible grins. Selena had gotten to know Cade's mom pretty well over the couple of years she and Cade had dated. The lady was very sweet, with graying black hair, and she wore in a bob. She was much shorter than Cade's 6'2". She wasn't nearly as fit as her son either. Cade's mom, called me Janice dear, reminded Selena of her own grandmother, round-shouldered and soft-bellied. Janice looked as sweet as she acted. She had a heart-shaped face with a deep-set green eyes like Cade's, and her wrinkles, smile lines around her eyes and mouth, somehow added to rather than subtracted to her pleasant face. Partial to pastel polyester pants and floral blouses, Janice looked like a quintessential country mama. It was clear she was comfortable with who she was. Selena liked that about Janice, and Selena was looking forward to spending more time with her soon-to-be mother-in-law. She knew Janice was a great cook, and she even better baker. They spent every holiday at Janice's house, and Selena was excited about learning all Janice's culinary tricks. Selena decided she asked Janice to start with the roast chicken Janice served the first night Selena was going to stay with her. How did Janice make the chicken so perfectly moist and inside and crispy on the outside? Selena just had to know. Oh, it's the sleight of hand, dear, Janice said. Deadpan, unlike her son's deep voice. Janice's voice was girlish. She sounded more like a preteen than a senior citizen. Selena blinked at her. Janice and Kate laughed. She always says that when someone compliments her. Kate said, reaching out when she patted his mom's liver-spotted hand. Janice winked at Selena. I'm just kidding, dear. I'll teach you. It's about getting the cooking temperature right, and a couple other secrets I'll pass along. Selena smiled and leaned back, totally stuffed. It was a good thing she didn't plan to model anymore. Eating like this wasn't going to do her figure any good. She wasn't too worried about it, though. She planned to take long walks along the great country roads near the new house. Selena looked around Janice's cozy dining room. Janice lived in a sprawling white ranch-style house. According to Cade, the home used to be linked to an actual ranch that belonged to the great-grandparents, who had owned several hundred head of cattle. By the time Cade was born, though, the family had given up cattle ranching. His grandparents had sold off the bulk of the land, keeping just a few acres of privacy around the home. Cade's dad had been an attorney. He died of a heart attack when Cade was young. Because Janice loves ceramic figurines, dollies, and overstuffed furniture, the interior of Janice's house was a lot fuzzier than Selena preferred. But it was homey, too. You felt like you could just relax and be yourself in this house. Janice stood and started gathering up dirty dishes from her oak table. Selena started to help, but Janice waved her away. Cheesecake for dessert, anyone? Cade's arm shot up. Janice laughed. I'll have a piece, and I'm going to head back to the house, Cade said. I'll be up early tomorrow. I want to get a jog before work. Janice patted his cane arm. That's my boy. Fit as a fiddle. She grinned. And starting your new job, she turned to look at Selena. And the wedding coming up, it's also exciting. It sure is. Selena wanted to laugh out loud with glee. She smiled widely at Janice. Thank you so much for letting me stay here and helping with the wedding. "Oh, pish posh, dear," Janice said. "It's my pleasure." Selena had expected the 2 weeks she spent with Janice as the whirlwind of wedding preparations, but it turned out Janice had everything well in hand. Selena only had a few details to handle. She had more time to work than she thought she would, because Janice was a social butterfly, with a seamlessly endless number of clubs and committees. She was rarely home during the day, and she was so busy, in fact, that Selena wondered why Janice needed Kate's help at all. But it didn't matter. Selena was happy to be here. She was, however, looking forward to moving into her new house. While she was with Janice, Selena was staying in Cade's old room, which Janice hadn't changed since Cade had moved out. Selena thought it was sweet that Cade's space-themed bedspread was still in the twin bed and his constellation pattern curtains still hung over the windows. She was touched by the bookcases stuffed with sci-fi novels and old school science, math, and computer programming textbooks. She was also amused by the collection of plush toys and action figures that coexisted on top of the chest of drawers and desk tucked into the corner of the room. She was curious as well. She noticed a few photo albums and scrapbooks stacked on the floor of the small closet where she hung her clothes. Cade had never shown her photos from his childhood. She hoped the albums would show her what she'd been missing. 4 days before the wedding, Selena realized that she looked too fidgety in her upcoming noodles to get any work done. Janice was out. Cade was at work. Selena closed up her laptop, and she squeezed between several toy astronauts and plush frog. She stepped over to the closet door. Pulling the door open, she sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the stack of albums. Selena reached for the first album, brushing the dust off its cover. Selena opened the leather-bound book and smiled at the photo of the gape-toothed little boy that looked up from her on the first page. Cade had been so cute as a kid, as he was handsome as a man. Selena started flipping through the photos. The first 2 pages of photos were pretty normal shots of Cade and his mom in front of the birthday cake. The third page, however, was a little weird. At first, Selena didn't know what she was looking at. The photo showed little Cade in near darkness. Around him, bright-colored luminescence nearly jumped out of the picture's inky backdrop. Selena realized Cade must have been in a blacklight arena. Flipping the page, Selena saw a photo of Freddy Fazbear and the namesake of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Selena had heard the pizza place, but Cade had never mentioned it. Strange. A few more photos revealed that the blacklight arena was in Freddy's Pizzaplex. In one photo, Cade was pointing up at the Pizzaplex's glowing red sign. Selena had heard of Freddy's Pizzaplex too. It was just one of the first family fun centers built in the state. A combination of arcade and indoor carnival with games, rides, and food. The album of the photo of Cade in front of nearby every game and ride in the complex, but in the bulk of the photos were taken by the blacklight arena. According to the huge sign in the back of the arena, the place was called Lallys Game. That was something Selena had never heard of. The place looked pretty eerie for some reason. Even just studying the photo made Selena shiver. A thud from behind Selena startled her. She dropped the album and whipped around. "Sorry, dear," Janice said. "I didn't mean to scare you. Just these aging legs of mine. Sometimes I get dizzy and walk right into walls," she laughed. Janice, wearing a powder blue polyester pantsuit, came into the room. "What have you got there, dear?" Selena picked up the flammable album. She rose to her feet. "Oh, one of Cade's old photo albums," Janice said. "How fun." She crossed her to the twin bed and sat. She patted the mattress. "Show me what you found." Selena joined Janice on the bed, sitting and opening the album. Selena inhaled the flowery scent of Janice's perfume as she flipped forward in the last 3 pages she'd been looking at. The next picture of the album was yet another shot of Cade pointing happily at the Lallys Game sign. Janice tapped on the sign and smiled. "Oh my, I have such fond memories of that place." "Freddy's Pizzaplex?" "Well, yes, but especially Lallys." Janice ran her index finger over the picture. "That was Cade's favorite game. We couldn't get him out of the place. I think he could have lived there. He would have." She chuckled. Selena raised an eyebrow. The dark arena was a glowing neon green and purple and yellow. Geometric designs and prehistoric-looking caves and caverns didn't look all that appealing to her. There was something off about it. Something that made her feel edgy for reasons she couldn't discern. Janice scooted over to Selena and turned the page. She looked at the next picture and laughed. Selena didn't laugh. Her unsettled feeling deepened as she looked at the photo of Cade with that. At first glance, appeared to be an unfriendly version of the famous unfriendly ghost. At the second glance, it was clearly a robot. "That was Lally," Janice said, poking at the robot's right, round, white face and above its soulless black eyes. Selena rubbed the back of her neck. It felt like ants were crawling out of her hair. "Lally was there to be playtime for the kids who didn't have a friend to play with," Janice said. "Cade's best friends didn't like the game as much as he did, so he was usually in the arena by himself." Janice was sitting right next to Selena, but for some reason her voice sounded like it was coming from far away. Selena was so mesmerized by Lally that she felt like she'd been pulled out of Cade's old bedroom and sucked into the photo with a small, disturbing robot. It was difficult to tell from the photo because Selena didn't know how tall Cade had to been at the time, but Lally looked like somewhere between 3 and 4 feet tall, mostly white and smooth, with a plastic or rubber outer shell. The bald robot was articulated arms and legs, and each bend of the limbs. The joints were black, the same blackness joined its neck and torso. The robot's outer shell had been given some vaguely human-like definition. It had small ears and a small nose, the faintest raised trace of eyebrows over the lidless black eyes, and some subtle muscular definition of the torso and limbs. Its mouth was a barely upturned curve, thick-lipped. Janice flinched when Janice turned to the right page of the album. Selena forgot Janice was even there. Janice didn't notice Selena's slight movement. She pointed at the next picture, in which Lally and Cade stood together. The robot was positioned so it appeared to be looking up at Cade, with an expression Selena thought was vaguely hostile. No, not hostile. Possessive. The picture of the last one of the album, Janice rubbed her fingers over inside. One day, someone stole Lally, she said, and that was the end of that. Janice looked at her watch. Oh dear, that is the time. I was going to bake a batch of wheat rolls. Would you like to learn how to make them? Cade loves them. Selena was still staring at the photo of Cade and Lally. She looked up at Janice. Was Cade sad? She asked. Janice turned. What do you mean, dear? When Lally was taken, was Cade sad? Janice looked over the album and Selena and closed it. No, dear. He was scared. Janice crossed the closet and replaced the album on the stack, and she brushed her hands together briskly. I'm going to change. I'll meet you in the kitchen, dear. Selena wanted to ask Janice what she meant. Why was Cade scared? But Janice was clearly done with the conversation. She bustled out of the room. Selena reached for a sweater. She was suddenly cold. By the time Cade showed up a couple hours later, at the end of his workday, Selena's chills had passed. She was sweating when Cade strode into the kitchen and said, Those rolls smell great. Learning to perfectly knead the dough was distracted Selena from her earlier fright. Seeing Cade, though, brought it back. Selena kept her thoughts to herself during the dinner of the bean soup, fresh greens, and homemade rolls. By the end of the meal, however, she was ready to confront Cade about it. She was so distracted by the memory of pictures in Cade's old album that she didn't look at his face without seeing the robot's face, too. As if it's seeing that Selena wanted to talk to Cade privately, Janice shooed Cade and Selena into the deck. I'll take care of the dishes. You two lovebirds need your private time. Selena didn't argue with Janice. Instead, she took Cade's hand and led him to the back door. Cade laughed when she tugged him over to the big screen cushioned glider at the edge of the large cedar planked expanse that hugged most of the back of Janice's home. Are we going to make out? Cade asked, squeezing Selena close as they sat. Selena didn't resist his snuggle, but after a few seconds she pulled away. She turned so that she could sit sideways in the glider and look at Cade directly. Uh-oh, Cade said. You're wearing your let's talk about our feelings expression. In spite of the tension that she felt since she looked at Cade's album, Selena smiled. You know me so well, she said. And I plan to spend the rest of our lives getting to know you better, he said. See? Such a romantic. Selena was a very lucky woman. And an image of a little Cade and Lally flashed through Selena's mind. She took a deep breath and let it out. Why didn't you ever tell me about Freddy's Pizza Plex? Selena asked. Cade was gazing at her affectionately, then Selena started to speak. At the end of her question, he looked away from her. An easy smile on his face disappeared for an instant. When the smile returned, it wasn't as easy. Whatever I thought you were going to say, Cade chuckled. It wasn't that. His chuckle was a bit strained. Well, why didn't you ever mention Freddy's? I looked at one of the photo albums this afternoon, and it was full of shots taken there. Your mom said that you loved the place, especially this freaky attraction called Lallys Game. Muscles twitched at the corner of Cade's eye. He compressed his lips. You never said anything about Lally, Selena pushed. And clearly you liked the thing because it was in a bunch of photos. Cade shrugged, narrowed his eyes. Have you told me about everything you liked when you were a kid? Selena blinked at the defensive throw it back question. She crossed her arms. I might have forgotten a few little things, but yeah, I mostly have told you about my favorite things. And you've talked about your childhood a lot, but never mentioned Freddy's or Lally's. Your mom had said Lally was your favorite game and that they had a hard time getting you out of the place. That's a pretty big deal for a kid. It's strange for you to never mention it. Cade looked over Selena's shoulder. The sun had tucked itself behind the rolling hills west of the ranch house. The sky was pink. A chilly breeze began to stir the leaves in the rhododendrons that flanked the deck. A few of the blush's bright purple blossoms blew free of their branches and danced through the air. Cade, Selena prompted, what's going on? You're acting bizarre. Kate stood. I just have some bad memories from that time, okay? Someone got hurt. I don't like to talk about it. Without waiting for Selena's response, Kane turned and headed back inside the house. As he went, though, the door, he called to Janice warmly, without a trace of the coldness that had hardened the words he'd just thrown at Selena. Want some help with those, Mom? Selena's wedding day was everything she hoped it would be, almost. Although Selena's mom had wanted to throw a wedding so far over the top that it wouldn't have been able to be held on planet Earth, Selena, Kate, and Selena's dad, who was funding everything and was happy to agree that less was more, convinced Selena's mom that a casual wedding was more tasteful. Selena's brother David, who would look good looking as Selena but as pretty, but who thought jeans and black t-shirt was fashion, offered the winning argument. If you don't go along with that she wants, he told her mom, she and Kate could always elope. Instead of the ridiculous fluffy dress Selena's mom had chosen, a dress in which Selena looked like a merengue, Selena picked the slick vintage silk dress with a high neck, long sleeves, and semi-full skirt. Rather than a veil with a 20-foot train, she had only a small spray of flowers in her hair, which she arranged into an equally sleek and simple French twist. Kate wore a navy blue suit with a white shirt and white tie. In addition to the downscaled wardrobe, they chose to use local apple blossoms and white daisies for their flowers. Selena's mom had argued for a large bridal party, but Selena and Kate had each chosen to have their best friend stand with them. Happily smiling, redhead Val, wearing an A-line navy blue cocktail dress, was Selena's attendant. One of Kate's college buddies, lanky and good-natured Greg, wearing a navy blue pants and white shirt, was Kate's best man. Although Selena's mom had argued for an upscale wedding venue and a fancy catered reception, she yet again given to Selena's present, which had to be married, outside. Janice had offered her backyard for the wedding and reception venue. She and her army of neighborhood lady friends who also organized an unorthodox but fun and easy potluck reception. As Selena stood under the apple blossom covered arbor in the lush green garden behind Janice's home, she faced her new husband after the minister, a perpetually smiling, curly-haired man, intoned, "Now I pronounce you husband and wife." This was the moment, the one Selena had been envisioning for so long. Selena looked up at Kate's hooded eyes and expected to feel nothing but a rush of love and joy she held in her mind. Unfortunately, the reality didn't live up to expectation. Although Selena didn't feel her love for Kate as he smiled down at her, she didn't feel happy to be his new wife. But she also felt something she never thought she'd feel on a wedding day. She felt suspicious. For the first time in 2 years she'd been with Kate, Selena didn't fully trust him. Something about his weirdness over the trunk and his fondness over the unpleasant little robot was bothering Selena. "You may kiss your bride," the minister told Kate. Kate leaned down and took Selena in his arms. His embrace made her think all the history together, a reminder of how much she loved him. So as she kissed him, she tucked away her nebulous distrust. Over 100 people attended Selena and Kate's wedding, and because they had been instructed to dress to have fun and don't dress to impress, everyone was rolling good time. The good food was incredible. The local acoustic band was unexpectedly talented and played everything from bluegrass to rock to classical, which managed to make everyone happy at one point or another. Dancing was one of Kate's talents, a man who had some shortcomings. He managed to shuffle through their slow song, and he got silly and jerked around the dance floor like a man being electrocuted during the fast songs. Selena danced her heart out. She had a blast. At the end of the reception, before Selena and Kate got their SUV, now beckons and streamers and tin cans featuring the Just Hit sign on the back, Selena's family came up to her and wished her well. Selena's handsome gray-haired dad, happily casual in slacks and an open-collared pale blue shirt, hugged her first. As he held her close, he whispered, "I'm so proud of you. Remember, be your own person. Trust your instincts. Always choose joy." Selena pulled back and smiled into her dad's wet eyes. She wiped her own tears away. "I love you, Dad." Her brother hugged her next. He, too, whispered some advice in the ear. "Don't screw it up." And Selena's mom, who stuck to her guns and wore an expensive designer crepe gown for the wedding, Selena had to admit it suited her lovely, tall and regal mother, put her arms around Selena last and asked, "Are you happy?" Selena honestly able to answer, "Yes." By then, Selena had nearly forgotten about the odd feeling she had about Kate. She decided she had just pre-wedding jitters. This decision was solidified during the 2 blissful weeks that followed. Kate and Selena, who described to postpone their honeymoon. For one thing, Kate had started his new job, and for another thing, they wanted to funnel their free time and their money into fixing up the farmhouse. Accordingly, they spent their wedding night in their new home. The next day was a Sunday, and they spent the day cuddled up in a new four-poster king-size bed, the wedding present to each other, poring over design magazines and paint chips. It might not have been everyone's idea of a perfect day, but Selena felt like she was floating on a cloud. The floating cloud, however, plummeted to earth the next day. Kate went off to work before 7 a.m. on Monday. Selena started her day more leisurely. Although Kate loved to go for runs in the morning, Selena didn't like an early rise, and she didn't like running either. For that matter, after Kate left, she went a long brisk walk, and she came back. She made herself some peach spice herbal tea. Still wearing the leggings and t-shirt she had worn on her walk, Selena loved working at home. She took the tea into her office at about 9:30. Selena's office was a small spare room just off the living room. All it was contained in the moment was a white metal folding table that held her laptop and desk lamp, her soft gray, tall, black backed desk chair, the only piece of office furniture she splurged on, then stacks of file boxes. Selena had big plans for this room, which she intended to implement over the coming week. But first, she needed to do a little actual work. Still floating in the post-wedding euphoria, Selena smiled as she opened her laptop. She clicked on the icon for her website dashboard, and she began reading most of her recent reader comments and responding to them. In the third comment, a reader thanked Selena for helping to keep old baggage in the past. The words completely derailed Selena's plans to work, because they immediately made Selena think of the Kate's hidden past and a natural reaction to her curiosity about the hideous trunk. Selena responded to the reader's comments, but she wasn't able to concentrate next to one. She was going to find out what was in the trunk. Selena didn't know whether Kate's trunk had anything to do with whatever happened at Freddy's Pizza Plex, but she had the same strange reaction in both things, and Selena had felt the same disquieting feeling about both subjects. Something about Selena couldn't put a finger on subjects. Something that Selena couldn't put a finger on told her the two things were linked. After confrontation over the trunk in the living room on a Tuesday, the movers had delivered her stuff. Kate had packed up the trunk and said, "I'll stick this in the darkest corner of the attic. You'll never see it again." He grinned and winked at Selena, and she smiled back. However, her light exchange had been faked. Recalling the moment now, Selena remembered how forced the grin, wink, and smile had been. "What if I want to see it again?" Selena said out loud now. He closed her laptop and stood. Selena's tennis shoes made low squeaks against the old, uneven hardwood flooring as she strode out of the office and trotted up to the second floor. Then she reached that floor. She hurried down the long hall toward the doorway to the attic. Reaching the door, she took a deep breath and yanked it open. The puff of dust wafted into the hall, making Selena sneeze. A faintly musty smell followed the dust. Unlike the attic in the house Selena had grown up in, which had one of those pull-down staircases, a farmhouse attic was reached by a normal flight of stairs. Albeit slightly narrower than the stairs leading from the first floor to the second, the wood risers of the stairs were warped and torn, but they were sturdy. Selena grabbed the white painted railing. The paint was dirty from years of use, and it was chipping. She headed up the stairs. Although Selena had explored the attic with delight when she and Kate had toured the house before they bought it, she hadn't been back up the slope roof space since they moved their stuff into the house. They agreed to have their long-term storage items put up here. Everything else was downstairs. Selena hadn't had a reason to come up here until now. If she was honest with herself, Selena had to admit that she had been waiting for this opportunity to come up here and look at Kate's trunk. Even distracted as she'd been by the wedding, she mentally put finding out what was in the trunk on the top of her to-do list. The mystery of it was chafing at her. Selena got to the top of the stairs. She reached for a string pull and a single exposed bulb that lit the attic. She yanked on the string. Bright light joined the yellow glow in the sun streaming in through the dormer windows of the either bend of the big space. Because they hadn't been accumulated a lot of stuff that needed long-term storing, just a few boxes of keepsakes and photo albums, a stack of luggage, and several plastic storage bins filled the holiday decorations. Selena loved holidays. The static was pretty wide open. Just a couple of dozen boxes were stacked to the south end of the space. Selena looked down, taking in the low cross beams of the insulated underside of the roof and age-gray wood floor, the murky glass through the paned windows. She and Kate had plans to finish the attic and turn it into a big rec room. And maybe one day she could be a big playroom for their future kids. A lot of work would go into that project, but for now, at least the attic was functional as storage. Selena strolled over to the stack of boxes. Kate must have put the trunk behind them. Well, we'll find that out next time. Yep, we gotta end it here. But hey, we at least got, you know, through a good part of it. So hey, I'll say that much. Anyways, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. People like Be Fisher. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And next time we read, we'll be reading from page... Wait. Yeah, okay, cool. Woo, I thought I only read 10 pages. Next time we'll be reading page 101 to 121. 120. So, yep. Hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.